one of my classes at Campbell had to do this.
Really?
Oh yeah. But we had to do ours like in person. So we had to go like sit down and so like you try to find somebody
easier.
around you. Yeah,
it almost would have been easier because I had to go through. I had to like download this
right
screen capture thing. It was so stupid.
Right. That's what I was like. I'm glad I didn't have to mess with that. I was as tech savvy as I'm not. I was like, that robot was giving me the business that we bought to paint the field for like the first 2 weeks. So I was like, man.
I'm still trying to figure out all this. And I'm getting out soon. I feel old. Everyone's like, oh, let me show you how to do this. And I'm like, I didn't even know you could do that.
I'm telling you. That's what like, the other day I was like, do people even still Zoom? I was like, that's still a thing.
It's going away. Like,
I swear, like since COVID, I haven't heard of it hardly. Like, we haven't used it for really anything.
All my classes, I feel like you could Zoom call in like
right.
first and second year, and now if you're not there, they're on your tail.
Dude. Heck yeah, that's.
I don't even know.
Yeah, and I learned quickly like, being there is half the battle, and like you're gonna do fine if you get there. Exactly. You're gonna be okay.
I've learned that the hard way.
On me, give me both, brother.
Yeah, I'm just clearing up. It's okay if I record you and everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
just
absolutely.
Sure. Gotta ask that and everything.
Oh no, I get it, especially nowadays.
Dude, I know. Guess we can just start with a little bit of background so he knows who you are and everything. Just like name, absolutely. Where you went to school and everything, your job title, stuff like that.
All right. Hey, my name is Cameron Ramsey. I'm the assistant athletic director at Rocky Mountain Academy, and I also teach pre-K through high school PE. I graduated with an undergraduate degree in exercise science from Campbell University, and I transferred in there from my first 2 years at Wake Tech, where I played baseball. And so I did a little bit of the collegiate athlete thing prior to deciding to become a full-time student, which was good for me too.
That's great.
So that's how I got my start.
Where you played.
Yeah, Wake Tech. It was actually like the inaugural season, which was pretty cool.
Really? How was that?
Yeah. It was really good in the fall. We were surprisingly good. And then unfortunately lost pretty much half our pitching staff to grades after first semester. So we ended up, I think we finished at 5-20 my freshman year. And coming from a high school we won a state championship in 2008, my junior year, and then we were number one in the state my senior year. I said it had been a long time since I'd been on a team that had been, I think since I hadn't won more games than that. I was like, so it was definitely a culture shock, but it was awakening too, just to see when you do something like that, you choose it. It affects everybody. How many people it affects around you?
Exactly.
And what it causes.
Man, going from winning basically every game to only 5.
It was wild. It was a wild experience. And I played infield my whole life in high school and ended up starting in left field my freshman year. So that was a new experience too. And so it was all it was fun. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but it definitely opened my eyes to a lot of things. Talking about getting used to handling adversity. Right out the gate, baby.
Had to keep your bat in the lineup, man.
Absolutely. That's what helped me out.
No, that's great. I guess we can just get into basically with just what you do every day, your day-to-days, your duties.
Absolutely.
Congrats on the promotion, man. I didn't even know until I looked it up that you're the new assistant AD now. That's great.
I appreciate it. So this is going into year 2 now. So my first 8 years, I taught just PE, and that's varied from teaching just middle school and high school mainly to teaching just lower school mainly, and now I do a little bit of it all the way down to pre-K, which is a pretty wild experience. So, first day, and what's crazy is that's your first class of the morning, pre-K kindergarten. We have them early 3 or 4 days a week, which is they're excited to be there when you get there in the morning. So my daily routine is waking up to 5 and 6 year olds, and man, it's hard to start your day off bad when you got a group of kids that are so excited to be in there and so ready to have fun. So it's kind of hard to have a bad day or to at least start off rough. I was like, we get middle schoolers a little later in the day. They can be a little moody, but that's how. So my day starts off with young kids, and from pre-K through 4th grade really in the mornings, and then about 11 o'clock I go into middle school. So that kind of switches up the pace a little bit. Now, it changes for us. Like this year, I'm actually teaching 6th grade, so it's a lot of the old 5th graders. So for them, some days it's not a big change from the lower school to the middle school, but when you're teaching 8th grade and things like that, you're going more in depth and skills of game, like the games within the game and things like that versus basic skills and motor skills and things like that. And then come by the afternoon, so I have a little break after middle school, which is my fieldwork time. So I had fieldwork responsibilities. So I mow the grass, paint the field for football, soccer, things like that around the baseball. So I have about a 2-hour window in there where I go to do that before I finish up the day with sports med class, which is high schoolers. So I get to end the day with high schoolers, and we do, as far as sports med, we're setting up all the coolers, ice coolers, medical coolers for games, making sure they have everything they need for practices, games, especially football season in the fall. It's August in North Carolina, September. There's a lot of extra things we're doing. We're making sure there's ice tubs and all kinds of extra things like that, extra ones. That way, if emergencies happen, we are prepared. So that's really a big part of my day-to-day now with being an assistant AD and teaching is really my first half of the day with mainly lower school and then a middle school group. And then I go outside, I call it my me time to get ready for my high schoolers and, mow my grass and paint the field, do things like that, get my robot running. And so then I come back and we get everything ready for practices and games. And this year I'm actually the first responder as well, an athletic first responder for football. So I've been traveling to all the JV and varsity football games as well as attending practice every day just to make sure.
Did you have to get a certification for that?
Do what?
Did you have to get a certification for that?
So I had to it was more of a little bit above a normal first aid and certification. It wasn't. It's really more just to have somebody out there that, honestly, if something bad happens, I'm the first one to call 911 and make sure like we can handle the situation, make sure we do have a doctor on the sideline. So that's nice. Exactly. A lot of other teams do as well. So what it does is I'm the coordinator of how everything's going to operate if something were to go down. And fortunately at home this year, we haven't had any bad situations. Actually last week at the away game, kid from the other team had a pretty nasty leg break. And I've seen some good ones over my 10 years, and it was pretty good. So, but luckily it wasn't compounded or anything like that. So, it was more crowd control for our boys. Like, hey, let's get to our sideline, like take a knee, like more of a distraction, things like that.
Get the ambulance in there.
Exactly. Like play the waiting game then. So luckily they had a first responder and a paramedic there on site. And normally we have ambulances at every game, but this year we've had them at our big games, which has been awesome. But there's been a few JV games where we haven't had them just due to limited availability and things like that. So I always get a little more nervous on those nights. But luckily for us, the fire station's right there. So I'm like, if something were to happen, we still have somebody that's going to be on scene very quickly. And I also make sure part of my duties are check defibrillators and things like that at every site to make sure they have batteries and that makes me feel better too, knowing you have those kinds of things and immediate access to them if something were to happen.
Oh man, you stay busy. It sounds.
I'm telling you, which I like. I prefer it that way, but it's always something.
I can't even imagine during baseball season. I'm assuming you're still coaching.
Oh yeah, so they can't kick me out of that. Yeah, that was and like we had some unfortunate stuff go down with our football situation this year. So I was honestly expecting to step in and coach, which I was a little looking forward to selfishly, because with the new rules and things like that in the private school, you can't be the first responder and a coach, because as a coach, you're locked into your position and your kid, you're not watching the scene and things like that. So you might not necessarily be in the state of mind of like, hey, this is where this is, bang, 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 kind of. And I get it. I understand. Selfishly, I'm like, man, come on. Like, so I will say, and I think we ran into you at an away game. I was like, it's hard at those games when I'm able to walk the sideline and things like that to not coach. But I've enjoyed, man, there's nothing like a Friday night, that. So I've enjoyed that. And really the best part about baseball last year, my first year as the assistant AD, was sometimes when I get on the road and we go to games and I'm like, sorry, y'all, like I can't. You got to call the boss lady today.
That's funny. Yeah, y'all been still doing really good, man. Have you had a losing season in baseball yet? I was looking back at your seasons. I don't know if you've had a losing season yet.
Knock on wood, not yet. I think we've been close, but not quite. I've been very fortunate, man. A lot of good players, a lot of good coaches to help out. It's been a lot of fun, and we still got Seth Tickle this year, our senior arm.
Oh yeah.
So he's been up to 90-91. So
Really?
and he's been sitting at he actually threw yesterday and was 89-91 the majority of his pitches. So seeing that consistency build in him is pretty incredible.
No, that's really cool.
So and like he's a senior.
Some credit, man.
He's a senior. Oh man, like I just write the lineup card,
man.
I just make the lineup card. They make me look good.
Well, there's still something to that. That's actually what I put you down as, because I didn't even know you were the assistant AD. I just put
and like a lot of, I mean, it's just happened, and like it's kind of happened so fast, and with everything going down, it's kind of and you know how I've always kind of helped do things, so it was nice to kind of because they kind of created that position. Well, they didn't they did. So that feels good too, to know that like you're
getting recognized for all you
do.
Now.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
like you've always been running around doing a little bit of everything.
Try to. That's what and especially if a player or somebody asks, it's hard not to. I was like, man, if you feel good and that helps you play good, I'm for it. If we can make it happen, we're gonna make it happen.
No, that's great. Guess we can just get into just some of the challenges of all your mini jobs. You hold so many hats. Like, come on. I know you got to have those challenges.
I would say like the biggest challenges, and I've really had to be better about myself is being, I'd like to like knock it all out, but I've not necessarily always structured in my ways of doing it where, having a class that helps me do certain things at the end of the day and knowing how my classes are broken up this year is a lot more of my daily schedule's the same versus in the past we've had kind of all kinds of crazy schedules just to give each other breaks and things like that. And so for me that was my challenge early, was structuring to make sure where I didn't feel like, if we didn't do this today, it's going to overwhelm us the next day and like have so many things build up that, I got to go do this at soccer, but football needs this. And, no, tennis has a home match and we forgot something there. So like that can kind of spin real quick on a busy home game day if you have everybody on your home site. So that's the biggest thing. And what I found that helped was just checklists, making like, hey, this is what tennis needs on a game day. This is what football needs. This is what soccer. And I find myself, I keep my little book. And so I kind of run my checklist and make notes on the board of what I need help with from students and my class and things like that. So that was one of the biggest challenges I felt like early that I struggled with. And also was probably a big part of it was asking others to help as well, like being able to delegate some things and understanding like you can't do it all, even as the assistant, like there's things that are delegated to me and then there's things a lot of those I can handle and there's some things that I have to delegate, even like the kids helping me out, run coolers and little things sometimes, but I've had guys that have helped me paint field and pull strings and some that have loved it, and I've had a group there. I didn't even paint the baseball field for like the last month of the season. They got out there and loved doing it, and it's what I very quickly realized how helpful and impactful it really was. That 30 to 45 minutes to an hour, right? And there's only so much you can do, and that's one thing I've noticed. Coaching staffs that are cohesive, those things when they work well together, those things seem to take care of themselves. So I feel like that's something I've tried to help build. Like you're going to have days, we're all competitors,
exactly.
And we all love to win. But at the end of the day, we're all here to shape y'all and create work ethic and things like that. The deal. So that's the ultimate goal at the end of the day is in the wins or loss columns. I always feel like, if you do the little things right and take care of business, that'll take care of itself.
Exactly. Well, it seems to have worked at least, man.
So far.
You got a track record.
It doesn't hurt. We've had a couple D1 kids slide through there.
Yeah.
And very good players around them.
You got to have coaches to build them up, though.
Man, I appreciate it.
What about like some of the smaller things though? Like people wouldn't even think about, like just like some of the things like that may take you aback just in your day to day that people wouldn't even think about that you would have to face during the day.
I try to say like biggest thing for me is, and I noticed as a baseball coach prior to my other taking on extra responsibilities, but and I don't know, when in my old school, like every coach was kind of designated to their own field. Little things I didn't think about was like spraying Roundup and having to weed eat and do all these little things, the infield dirt, how the grass grows in if you don't stay on top of, like, it needs to be drugged once a week in the off season. Little thing, to me, that's something that's a little thing, but you can easily overlook it when you're busy doing other things. Exactly. And all of a sudden it gets out of hand and it looks bad, and it's a lot of work in the spring to fix.
I know.
I feel like that little things like that are, I feel like things that you take care of, like the baseball field for us, a big one is like little things are like the dirt. Like, so, we're not using that field all fall necessarily, that half of it, but if you can't just neglect it either. So like, I feel like those little things people don't think about is it's not just a 3-month thing, like the facilities there's little things to do around there that even something as simple as like I forgot to do. I was terrible early in my career, forgetting to change the trash cans. You do all this stuff and you get out of there at night and you come back the next day and it's overflowing. And you're like, oh shoot, we forgot to do that. And like little things until I've learned to, like, we all have duties at the end of the game and things like that, just to help out with those little things that are really often overlooked.
Like, you're too busy
right?
Trying to manage the game and everything. The last thing that's on your mind is the trash cans.
100%. And you come out the next day, you've had a big, a rivalry night. And you come out the next day and you're going, oh crap, they're all overflowing.
That's if they didn't get knocked over by a storm.
Right, and you never know. Everywhere. I mean, and that's the thing for us too. It's like, oh, do we have trash bags? Like, where do I need to go to get trash bags? The little things like that. Like, you don't think about being outside of the school. It's not something you always, as a coach, you don't always just have on you. Mm-hmm. So like, you have to know where they are, how to get them, and sometimes you're at somebody else's mercy and you're waiting, like, because that's part of their job, and like they're coming, but they're, you're out there in the morning going, oh my God, like you're looking at it like completely different. You're like, all right, I got to breathe. It's okay. Like, it's going to be here this afternoon. Like, we'll get it.
You got to bring together your own little stockpile of them, put them in
absolutely.
the dugout.
Now I have a stash in our locker room.
No, that's great. Wait, how
but
are
I've learned
those
the hard
new,
way.
like, dugout locker rooms? I haven't seen them yet.
Unbelievable. So the most unbelievable part of it to me, it's all 100% donated. So really? From the ground up, from the concrete pads that they sit on to the brand new dugouts with locker rooms, the press box, the backstop with all netting and new poles, was all 100% donated. We paid a little bit to get getting painting done, some of it. And we had, I think we paid a little bit for some of the framing stuff early before one of the companies came in that was like, man, we can build this. And we were like, for well, how much is it? And they were like, no, we'll take care of it. We're like, wait, what? So like, and they have young kids. He played college baseball. It's actually Edwards Crane, if you've ever heard, like there. So they're a very large crane company, and obviously I knew that, but I had no idea what they really did and how wonderful they are. But they've got a bunch of kids that have gone to RMA, and they have young kids there now. I think 2nd grade, 3rd grade, super young, boys and girls. Between there's 2 sets of the family that's there, and he just was a big baseball guy. Played at Wesleyan. Little did I know that they've done a lot of the brickwork and the stuff they've built out there recently. I had no idea. It's like, because you don't see a name. Normally people are spending that kind of money. You see a name, and exactly. So I was sitting there asking. I was like, "Hey, man, like I want to put your name here," and he was like, "Nope." Like, but they're like one of those people that are they're doing it because they can and they want to and they want to give back, and that's even more unbelievable. So it's like that. And that's how, and I, tell our kids and our guys and like people care. Like, so, this is how much people think of us and like how they want to see you succeed. So, remember that on the days when, and I get it as a coach, you might not want to be here or like, I don't want to practice today. Like that little extra drive you need. And then you look up and go, man, this is awesome. Like this is first class. And, you've seen it but before on both sides now. And I get, it's a drastic upgrade. I mean, almost a $500,000 upgrade.
I don't know if I've seen it completed because I think
I was going to say you may not have seen it completed now.
I need to get out to the game this year.
It's unbelievable, man. Even down to the heating and air units on each dugout, we have heat and air in the locker rooms, and 100% donated. And that's just part of the school. The company we actually use for our heating and air systems. We unfortunately, as a school, had 6 units go out at one time. But that brought us to a meeting with the head guy, getting our school fixed. We're like, hey, by the way, we're doing this project. And they ended up offering, we were like, what would it cost for those split units? They were like, well, we're replacing 60 y'all school units. They're like, how about we donate those to y'all? And they installed them, helped with maintenance, everything. I mean, unbelievable. So just lucky, first-class people, very generous, like things like that. Just community giving back, and I'm excited. I mean, it's we have one of the best facilities now in the area, and I'll argue that with anybody. And it's only going to get nicer. We've got new backstop tatting that's going to go up, and we haven't even officially broke in the new press box yet that also has heating and air in it. So it wasn't quite finished at the end of last year. We were able to use the field, dugout, locker rooms. The netting was all up. For the press box, we had some, we went through some merry-go-rounds with permits for the final permits, and we had a 2-week hold-up for a plate in a box that covered some wires. But, those are little things you learn. I mean, I knew nothing about it. So I'm sitting there. He's like, man, we failed. I was like, what happened? He was like, this plate. And I was like, I kind of looked at it. I was like, dang, I would have never thought about that. He said, and if it was outside, he said, you wouldn't need it. He said, it's only because it's in here. Because we started looking. I was like, the other ones didn't have it. He's like, if it was outside, you don't. It's just one of those little things.
I guess a fire hazard or something.
And exactly is what it was.
Oh my, yeah,
so, but, and I mean, I never. Then they had a question like, what color do you want to paint the stairs? I was like, I don't know. Like, what? It's like, little, I was like, man, I was just so thankful and appreciative of everything going down. I was like, I hadn't even thought about the little details of things like that. And then the company that built it, they, like I said, they helped at Wesleyan College with their baseball facilities and stuff like that. A little minor detail I've noticed recently that's in my mind is unbelievable is where the press box has a gap right behind the backstop. So you can walk, you can flow through. Well, there's a concrete sidewalk all the way along the backstop so you can set chairs. And then we're going to end up concreting the rest of it for bleachers and things like that. But right now we still have the gravel back there. But where they concreted it between the backstop and the press box, it's got a slight angle so everything drains down to where they built French drains in, things like that. They even put in French drains around the backstop to help it drain so it's not just retaining water in there. I mean, it's cool, man. Just to see the whole process go down was really, really cool. Learned a lot. Things I never thought about, sprinkler heads. So I was like, man, I never thought I'd be dealing with this. They're like, where do you want these? I was like, where they hit the grass? I don't know. so I met with our irrigation guy and he sat down, explained it to me what you're looking for, things like that, how you want them to operate. So I was like, how neat is that? So we can run different zones now. He's like, I can water my dirt and don't have to hit my pitcher and things like that.
That's really cool. I'm glad y'all got a facility to make the grass look even better.
I'm telling you.
Had it on point, man.
Hey, man, it's looking good, too, right now. They looked at the other day. They said, did you overseed the infield? I said, no, man. I was like, it's not overseeded yet. I said, that Bermuda's just still thick and pretty right now. I was like, but we haven't been on it since the spring.
We got winter coming up. Now is the hard part.
With this frost that just came through, it's done for. I give it about a week. It'll be nice and brown. It'll be time to seed it. And then we'll get that pretty winter ride, which I love. And that's a little thing as a coach. I didn't think that gives you those pretty stripes. That winter ride really stripes up really nice. So learning how to work the mower and do that. I've had lines that are all over the place and you just get better with time.
That's really cool. I'm glad y'all got that because it just boosts morale. Like if you're playing at a really nice stadium, you want to play good.
Absolutely. And that was, when you were there, we always tried to go play the schools like USA Baseball and all because we wanted to go play at nice facilities. And then when your crosstown rival has a beautiful facility, you're like, man, dang, we need to.
Like when Jared was playing at Granger.
Oh, right. Unbelievable. Cool. That was one of the best services I've ever been on myself, and I've been at some nice ones. And that was unbelievable. That was so cool. I was telling somebody about it. They were like, y'all play JV there too? I was like, man, everything. Yes. They were like, what? I was like, it was awesome.
Like 7th, 8th grade in a minor league outfield, and I'm like, dude, this is the coolest thing ever.
Stadium, so cool. That was,
I don't know how I'm gonna cover all this ground, but it's cool.
Nobody can. That's the thing. That's
dude.
why I was like, it's fair.
Especially in JV. Your legs aren't long enough to get you there. That's cool. Oh, man. So, you said you were still coaching some for football?
So,
are you like an assistant or something?
Technically, since I'm the athletic first responder for football this season, I'm not allowed to coach. So home games when I am, really more just I've got the gator set up. I've got all the things you need in case of an emergency. I normally sit the opposite of the paramedics. That way we can kind of meet in the middle if that's the case and give a ride or whatever we need.
So it's hard. Like a coordinator or anything.
Not anymore. Not with the new rules. As far as me being the athletic first responder. So that really changes. But that's what makes it tough. So, but when we're on the road and I can move like I want to, you know how I am. The old coach comes out of me, and with the new staff, and we're still trying to run the old offense, and I've been in it for 10 years now, so I do know it at least pretty well.
Just about as
good. And I've coached O-line, I've coached everything else. I've coached multiple different positions. So it's hard not to and be able to, and I feel like when I can help and and some coaches will come hey, how did, so I love being able to help like that when I can, but it's hard at practice every day to sit there and be quiet, and there's some things I can help with, but when really you do a lot of the coaching when we go Indy and things like that. And that's really where I can't do anything because I have to kind of sit back and be able to see kind of everybody, kind of be able to flow and keep my eyes on everybody to make sure the lineman in the hole hitting the sled, wearing that thing out, they're not getting worn out, and I can also watch the kids, the backers up top hitting, doing drills. So I'm kind of flowing back and forth to make sure everything is all good. That's really where it makes it, I can't be stuck with one position because then I'm not gonna be able to see what's going on elsewhere in practice. So, but when we're doing team stuff, I stand kind of around right on top, kind of with the coaches. So sometimes I can help stand on one side. Coach Barry, our line coach, I can stand on one side and him on the other, and we can kind of both help. So that's where I definitely can't be quiet there. It's just not in me, but I'm not breaking the rules then either because I'm watching everybody, But with JV and varsity, when they split, I do have to go back and it tears me up. But but then I try to kind of slide towards the young guys a little more just to be able to help more too. So I'm watching both. But normally by that time, varsity, the biggest part is when we're really doing our hitting drills and the physicality. If we're thudding and just kind of good wrap up on Team D or something like that. I can kind of go help the JV run plays or something like that if they need it, but I have to be very, observant, and it's hard. And it's like one of those things where I want to do it so bad, but I'm still, if something happened, I would feel terrible. So I can't, as bad as I want to, I'm still, in the middle, going back and forth.
It's just the line you got to tiptoe and be careful.
Right. Absolutely. But I do as much as I was at the beginning, I was like, man, I got to travel to every game. I really love those away games because I have a little more freedom to move around. And, I'm the first responder, so I can go outside the 25-yard box. So I slide down there, okay, man. And then I'm like, hey, man, remember you got to do this. I'm like, then I'll walk back. So I will use that to my advantage every now and then on the road.
Is Mo the head coach now?
Yes.
Okay. I saw is he the defense coordinator, the new guy?
The defensive coordinator is Emmanuel Davis. So we went to Rocky Mount High School together.
Oh, really?
He played football. He was a middle linebacker there. And do you remember Coach Pittman that used to coach as well? So they were our two Mike and Will linebackers side by side when I was in high school. Oh. And they're both very, very good. Both of them played college football. Chris went on to play. He played at UNCP, and Emmanuel played at Elon, and then ended up transferring to Campbell. Finished at Campbell and went to law school at Carolina. So now he's he actually just finished JAG school, but he's working at a law firm around here, and his son he's in kindergarten. So we're going to try to keep him as long as we can.
No, that's great, dude. I didn't even know he went to school with all y'all.
Oh yeah, man, he's good. He's good. He knows the game, and he's
He was
like
in.
Coach Mo and I are a lot very similar. We're both like, I'm loud, and that's part of that's being in a gym all day. And like he's very stern, more like Coach Hobbs was, but he's like very kind of keeps that same cool tone. Like so, like they definitely feed well off each other. And I think the kids are responding pretty well to it. And like I mean, he runs that defense, and he's even against the really good teams, man. We've looked good. Kerry got on us a little bit, but I missed that game, so I'm not sure. I also know they're just really good.
Dude, that's what I'm
Because
seeing.
I looked
like,
at scores, they beat
Kerry
everybody like that. It wasn't just us.
I was looking at some of the scores, just like seeing what was going on, and I'm like, when did Kerry get good? Because when I was playing, they were bottom of the barrel.
Awful. And so, man, COVID has changed the private school game.
Really?
I think a lot of kids, a lot of private schools, kind of like we did, we stayed in. So we obviously in February or March when everything kind of hit the fan, we all went home. But we found ways to social distance and come back that fall, being in smaller environments and things like that, where I think a lot of kids from public school, especially in the Raleigh area, Charlotte area, you've seen them blow up there. I think a lot of kids went to private school because they were in, and you could go kind of still have somewhat of a real class. And I think once they got there, a lot of people didn't leave. We saw our enrollment increase a lot to where we're kind of at the point where, we're kind of maxing to where we're not going to accept too many more students. We don't have room to grow. It's not that we don't necessarily want to, but we don't have the classroom space, especially in our lower schools and middle schools, which is normally a lot of kids come in high school. Mm-hmm. They'll go to a lot of the public schools. We had good schools, so they'll go there early, and then middle school, high school kind of transfer in, just with our academics being as good as they are. All our AP courses, those things. But now you're seeing, dude, I think our middle school right now, like two of the grades both have almost 50 kids. Right at, I think one's 46 and one's 50.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you got to 50 yet, because I think my graduating class was somewhere around like 35, I think.
And I think Wells' class was the biggest one yet. And they were like 49, 48, 49. They were right at it. So I think it's coming up. Now, this might be a few years, but there's like I think it's the 8th grade group in there that is actually still a small group, which is kind of funny that they're like the normal group that I was used to when I got to RMA. It's like 30, 35 of them. And now that's the smallest grade in the whole school, right? Which is crazy. But, them going to 9th grade next year, kids will come in. And which, again, at our school, you lose kids to boarding schools. It's very common. Their families, they went there. So, like, that's something, even as coaches and teachers, we deal with at private school that's different. Oh, yeah. You never know who's going to come. I've noticed it's very common with like a lot of our, like the girl students and their families, like, especially when there's like 3 or 4 sisters. It's kind of crazy. It's cool to see though. But it's like, how my mom went here and my grandma and all of this. I was like, well, that's pretty neat. Like now I get why you're going now. I get it. I understand. Like it definitely makes sense. It's like
for my class, I think we had like something like almost 20 kids come in my 6th grade year, and then like 10 more 9th grade. I'm
telling you, that's really when you see more of like the uptick in students. I'm telling you, like since then it's kind of been that way.
Because when I got there in 6th grade, and I was like,
what I was thinking, yeah.
I would talk to people, and I'm like, oh, you've been here forever, and they're like, dude, I'm new too, and I'm like, I didn't know who like had been there until like I finally got settled in. I'm like, okay, these folks have been there for a long time, whatever.
And it's kind of wild. We've got I think 6 to 8 new students in the last week, all from Asheville. Actually, really? With the storms and everything that have happened. So actually, I think it's 3 families, but 2 of them had Rocky Mountain connections. Like I think a mom went to RMA and then they moved out west to start their family, and then another one was like a family member of somebody had gone there. So we're lucky enough that we were able to we made room and had room to bring them in, and because I think 4 of the 6 went to Asheville Christian, and it's pretty bad. Like that school, really? The stuff I've seen, like mud in the hallways, all their buses were ruined. It was pretty bad at Asheville Christian. I know that one for a fact. Where a kid I coached in little travel ball was from Asheville as well. So I called him and checking on him, and he's like, where it's kind of wild that his basement flooded his house, and they had some trees down in the yard. Luckily, the house was okay. No power or anything like that. But they were very fortunate. Other than the basement flooding, the rest of their house didn't. He said, but it's just kind of, there's kids at the high school. They're actually relocated in the Clayton area. And it's like, it's kind of, we haven't been able to communicate with certain things. And I was like, man, if you're in Clayton, it's like, I'm 45 minutes away from you. I said, if y'all need anything, you need a place to hit, throw, you let me know. Like, we got you. So, like, it's nice to, you can try to find ways to reconnect with guys and help them out if you can. But I thought that was pretty cool that we were able to, help these students out.
No, that's amazing. I know a lot of schools out there because my aunt teaches out. I think it's more inland than Asheville. I mean, well, like
right.
More, what would that be? East than Asheville.
Yeah.
But their schools
but it's not
like decimated.
I was gonna say,
still, like they're not going to be able to go back for a while. I think they're starting up classes at like a Y or a church or something.
Are they really? Well, I'm surprised they're starting up. I was kind of wondering like what they were going to try to do, like because I mean I couldn't believe
next
it.
Week or something that they're going to try and do.
Try to start
classes.
Absolutely.
Like, you can only do it to a certain degree. Like some 100%. Places still don't have power.
Right.
Don't have Wi-Fi. Like.
And I know, like, I talked to somebody today, actually, like, somebody they knew that they put up kind of, what their job is building, like, temporary substations. And they were out there, like, trying to put up temporary substations to help try to get power out and things like that, which is nice to see. And I'm sure part of school, too, is you want to try to return some normalcy to the kids in the area. But, I mean, I could only imagine, even for the teachers, like, you have friends and students and some you'll see, some are you don't know, some are just relocated for now. But it's kind of crazy. But I'm glad it's cool to see that we were able to help. We can bring kids in, and I mean, no matter if we were at capacity, I'm sure I feel like knowing RMA that there's something we would do. But either way, I thought it was pretty cool that we were able to take those kids in, and like man, they fit in so fast, so quick. Like it's been cool to see.
How many did you say it was?
I think it's 6. I think there's 6.
Total? Any ball
6
players?
Like 6 to 8 we've gotten in the last week. Last week and a half that have come in.
Would they be able to play ball if they play?
So all of them, so that there's only one. I think there might be a middle schoolers, and I'm not sure. I haven't thought about that. I think there is. I think it's a 6th grader. And the way they do it now, like I have a third of the 6th grade, so I haven't met the whole 6th grade if they're new yet. So that'll be fun the next 2 trimesters. But I think all the rest of them are lower school. So we're not sure either how long. I mean, they're officially enrolled. I would like to think, knowing that when I went to the AD conference and things like that, the way Omar operates and the NCIS AA operates, having to move or relocate for that kind of situation, I would think they would absolutely allow those kids to play wherever they are.
Exactly. That's
just being in those meetings in our association, I would 100%. I don't think they'd second guess it. Now, public school, I could see it maybe being a little bit of an argument or a holdup, just because, unfortunately, there's probably schools out there that would use it as a recruiting. Not to say private schools wouldn't either. I'm sure there's some big ones out there, and they're really good and they're really competitive, especially in the Charlotte area. I've coached some summer stuff with a bunch of kids from Metrolina, and they're absolutely loaded. That team's so good. But not, I don't think people would do that, but I feel like that would be quickly argued in a lot of the public school stuff. But I'd like to think that, at the end of the day, they're going to be like, hey, wherever they want to go, wherever they're relocated to, they're free to do what they want. That would be if I had a vote. I'm like, man, let the kids play.
Well, just for the sake of the kid, that's a big
absolutely. They can't control any of that. They can't go home. You can tell me they can't play a sport. Like, come on.
Exactly.
Right. And that's why I'd like to think. I don't think it would be an issue. But unfortunately, like with some of that stuff, there's a lot of red tape there and things you have to go through, like the NIL stuff in public school, where it's becoming legal now. And today I saw something that a judge passed it. I think
for high school.
Maybe or they're getting ready to. But we approved it in private school at the end of last year, which is pretty crazy. So we had an NIL meeting at our AD conference this year. So, man, it doesn't, for us being a small school, it doesn't affect us really. Like, if we had a kid like that came through that was that good, I mean, by all means, man, get your money. But a lot of times, you know, those if that kid's got that kind of name, especially in the private schools, more like basketball, they're going to go to an IMG and they're going to end up somewhere like that. That's pretty common trait. You know, where they'll, because they're all, you know, we're 2A, we can't. Well, I don't know. I know we as a school, we do not offer athletic scholarships, despite what people say. We don't. There's a lot. There's absolutely academic money. So when you're a good student, you can call it what you want. But if you're a good student, there's money for you, and there's a lot of scholarship options. And like I tell people, and when you get in, there's a lot of like financial options for students who are already there. And they're designed for those kids to help the families out that are already at the school, and a lot of people don't realize either. So just taking advantage of those opportunities.
There's a lot more people on those like financial type scholarships than anyone realizes out there.
I think honestly, like, it seems like to me, like outside looking in, like there's more that aren't. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, and a lot of people have it like twisted, don't understand. Like most people are making payments just like everything else for their kids to go to school there. It's not like you're walking in with a shoebox full of cash and handing it over. Now, I know there is one family that does that, but you know, that again, that's very few and far between.
Exactly. No, dude. Oh man, we've already been talking for 40 minutes. I just didn't even felt like it.
We'll be catching up.
No, a lot of my questions are just based off of like baseball, because I was just like going through checking up on your seasons, and I was just like mainly just like wondering like just what, I know it's got to be a lot and more than you can even explain, just like what goes into like just building a successful culture, like all that, because like when I was playing, especially baseball, we were never really worried like, oh, are we going to like lose a whole bunch of games? Like, we thought we were going in and winning every single game, even in the playoffs.
And I do think, you know, with coach, my high school coach was there before I got there, and he kind of brought me in and was part of the hiring process when I came over. And I think when the headmaster, I think plays a huge, impactful role in all of that, the athletics, everything else. She's unbelievably supportive. You know, if there's something we need or like things like that, and it's, you know, you can justify it, building your program and making your guys better and things like that. And she supports you in every way she can. I think that's one of the biggest things is having good administration. The Mr. Tuckers of the world. Exactly. You know, I think those people are so underrated because you look at athletics and you go, oh, it's just the coach, it's just the AD. And I think like, obviously it matters 100%. But without the higher ups and being able to work together and communicate and those kinds of things, I said, I don't think you have a successful program where, you know, I know before the kid, especially with Mr. Tucker, that I'll use him as our example of just being able to communicate about academics. And I think, you know, we've put academics, I think our athletes know how important it is and what the ramifications are for not doing well, that, you know, and we as coaches push the academics first and like, hey, man, you know how we are. If you're struggling in class and you're on time to practice, we got a problem. Like, you need to be there. I said, or you don't help us. You do us no. If we have to leave you behind, it doesn't help your teammates, especially if, you know, no matter what your role is, really. And I think
y'all were always good with that. Like, if we needed to do something academically, like I was looking through when I was going to text you, I saw like the last text message was like, hey, I'm having this AP exam. I might be a little late to the bus.
And we didn't believe with you.
You were like, yeah, no problem. Like, that's fine. So it's like, that's always a good thing to see, because like, yeah, schools, it's always academics first, but it's always just a good thing to see coaches push that.
And I think for me it was too is I waited a little later to take it as seriously as I should, and I think it held me back a little in my athletic career versus where I ended up playing versus places I could have gone and where I was going. But you know, college kind of, and having that structure in college, playing the sport, really opened my eyes too to, you know, not doing just enough to get by is not going to get you anywhere. Yeah, it'll get you somewhere, but it's not where you want to be. And I think like that was something athletics helped me with, you know. But I would say too, I think everybody understanding in the program that like it's bigger than just baseball or whatever your sport is, and understanding we as coaches know that too. Like I love the game of baseball. I've been involved since I can remember with it in some fashion. But at the end of the day, the chances of any of us getting paid to do it down the road forever is zero. I mean, nobody's going to do it forever. I hope that we have guys that go on to make lots of money doing it. Like, how awesome would that be? But I think they need to understand that life involved. Most things there's always something more important out there, and that like we do these things and we work hard for the greater good and like for what else is to come later. You know, I feel like in our program, a lot of times we talk about doing the little things right. We focus on that, and that can be monotonous at times and things like that. And you're like, oh man, but all of a sudden when it happens, it's muscle memory and you just react. And I think that builds you for later. And, you know, those big things when you've prepared yourself, the big things kind of take care of themselves. You know, when you made sure you did the little thing, you dotted the I and crossed the T, and those little things, when everything happens, you're prepared and it takes care of itself, and it's not a stressful, overwhelming moment.
No, yeah, man. Speaking of like one of our successes, is Reed still playing minor league ball?
I was just getting ready. So, which is crazy, is I actually got a call from a college baseball coach today, and we were talking about one of our players, talking about our pitcher, and he goes, "Guess who I'm standing with?" He said, "Reed's over here, man." And I was like, I thought that was awesome. So what he's still playing. He's with actually with the Cleveland Guardians organization. Mm-hmm. So he got hurt this past year, had a surgery on his shoulder, and man, something kind of weird. He had some nerve issues coming out of surgery. So he ended up having another one. So to kind of create, to fix some things like that. So he's been out this whole season, unfortunately rehabbing and going through the injury process, but he's back throwing now. And so he's actually working out at Wesleyan College. So that's pretty cool. And I had to give him a little bit of a hard time. I was like, man, you hadn't come to see me yet? You know, because I was talking with the coach on speakerphone. He was like, man, he's still ugly, so it's all right. I said, good. That's all I need to know.
That's great. Because I saw when he got drafted, and, like, I follow him on Instagram and everything, so I, like, knew he was playing minor league ball, but I hadn't seen anything recently.
And that's what it is. He's been hurt all season, unfortunately. And when he came through the same time as Landon Root, who's been pitching in the big leagues with the Giants. So it's kind of crazy at one time in our conference that both of those guys were going against each other in a rivalry game. And that's without even I'm telling you, man, a lot of those games. And I mean, the kid he's hit some of the most majestic home runs I've ever seen, but that's unbelievable. But
I remember his batting practice, man. I'd be standing out in right field and I'd just see.
You just watch him go. Somebody asked that, which is why I brought him up today talking to a younger player. He was like, was talking about Will Stewart. And I was like, man, Will had a good lefty swing. He could hit it. I said, but we didn't lose nearly as many balls with Will Stewart as we did Reed. I said, you got to remember, it's 355 out there to that fence. Yep. And he was like, Reed hit him out. I said, he'd hit him over the football shed like he was nobody's business. They were like, what? I said, I promise you. I said, walk back through there. There's no telling how many baseballs there are. No. I said, those are gone.
It was crazy, man.
It was worth the $5 to watch that thing fly.
It really is.
I'm telling you, dude. Even as a coach, I mean, it was fun to watch. I mean, it's special. It's like you don't see a lot of that. You see a swing like that come through, and it's fun to watch.
It was such a sweet swing too. Man.
It was.
Like, no pitch in it.
Man, and I'd watch his mom throw BP after practice and everything else. She's humming those things in there, and that kid, he put in, so much time and effort and work in. So I mean, it paid off. That thing was pretty. It was hard to believe that he still got to college and became a pitcher. So I always give him a hard time. I said, I tried to tell you were going to pitch, man. You kept telling me you were going to hit. I told you were done swinging the stick, which was crazy to think about. But I just knew as good as his arm was, that was probably knowing the game now. Like, they're going to recruit a bunch. He's phenomenal glove, third baseman, unbelievable. But that's, the inner half of that swing is where 94, 95 can become a lot different at the next level. But if he wanted to do it and he allowed it, he would have still been a good player and a good hitter if he did that as well. But I'm excited to see that he's still playing. And people forget about Zarian Sharp at Oakwood. He got drafted by the Minnesota Twins. and also played at UNCW. He was a lefty at Oakwood that graduated at the same time as them and was almost not talked about because of those two guys.
Know about that.
He might have been a year ahead of Reed, and maybe he was a year ahead of them, but they were all in the conference at the same time. Because I remember there was that one year where there was those three, and then a kid at KVA that went to Barton to pitch, this little lefty. Man, all of those other guys looked like big D1 studs, and they were, but this little lefty came in from KVA and no-hit us, man, just absolutely shoved it up us. Like, I was like, who is this kid? And, it's just they always had those guys that were just bulldogs and competitors on the mound, and he just gave us the business that night, man. But it was talking about a good competitive league. I got there and was like, I always heard people like, well, I don't know how good private school baseball is. I said, very quickly learned, it's very good. And it still is. Like, it's been pretty cool to watch, especially all the teams you see now that are just absolutely all the the state championship year. We had 5 kids end up playing at the next level that year, which is unbelievable.
That team was something special,
dude. Special group. That was a special
bond. They were all
bond.
The same age. They were all seniors.
Well, that's what happened. But they all got there together as freshmen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think about half of them were there in middle school, and the other happened to transfer in. That was kind of right when I kind of started taking over as freshmen, and I started 5 of them on varsity as freshmen. And it was one of those situations where they were good players, and they were battling with older kids almost the whole year. So they started in and out, but they competed. And by the time they were seniors, all of a sudden, they were the number 1 team in the state.
Exactly.
And,
just a different level of ball player at that point.
Man, and my biggest credit to that team was, because I think it's my team in high school we were loaded, but we weren't able to do that. We started the season ranked number 1, but lost right before the state championship, where that team started off the season ranked number 1, had all those expectations, and still found a way to win it all. I mean, that's tough.
What graduating class was that? I can't.
That was 19.
Yeah, it was 19. That was just a special group of athletes, because you had like Jacob Brady on that team,
who ended up being one of arguably the MVP of the state championship series.
Yeah.
Like, he hit a home run and pitched all in game 3. Hit the bomb to put us ahead and pitched like 6 innings in that game. I mean, just crazy. Just an unbelievable athlete and a competitor. And so that's one thing. And it's cool to see too how the state championship with private school growing is, it used to always be at one of the nicest private school fields, where now we're played like last year in the state championship. Unfortunately, we lost Wayne Country Day, but we played it. Oh man, it's not.
My senior year, we went and played them. It may have been my junior year, and
I was right when they were
just talking to them. They were like, "Yeah, man, they have like 5 underclassmen that already have offers."
Yep, state. 2 of them are state. Like, now, if you look at their lineup, I think when we played them in the state championship, they had 4 Division I starters, maybe 5 starters. And then that's just the older kids. And then they started all the way down to had a freshman at second base who was impressive. And I mean, we started an 8th grader in right field who was also very impressive. But I mean, just it's crazy to see like a kid like that fit into that lineup too. And I mean, very good player. One of the smoothest, he's the shortstops at Campbell now, but one of the smoothest high school shortstops I've ever seen.
I remember that big 6'5" lefty first baseman that put one on the top of the roof of that house.
I know, I do remember him. And look, they have a kid now that looks just like him. He pitched
probably
game 1 of state. I swear it probably is. He pitched game 1 of state championship, and he got up there, and I was like, I didn't remember him being that big last year. But we got to play at a beautiful minor league facility in Ashburn, so that was really cool. It was all like freshly turfed. It was the high dollar. I think they had just done a $5 million renovation on it, is what they said. So that was a really cool experience to be able to treat the boys to that. And then this year we're actually going to a newer school. It's Grace Christian in Sanford, and they're coached by Rob Wooten, who played at Carolina and then got drafted and pitched with the Brewers organization. He's their head coach, and they're an unbelievable team. They actually, Gatorade Player of the Year last year came from them, a private school. So we're going down there to play at their new field, and they have a Megatron, fireworks, indoor facility.
Is that the same Grace Christian that we played in football?
No.
I was wondering.
They're actually 11-man now, which is crazy to see. Watch how their program grew. They were decent one year, went to 11-man, and it's been a struggle a little bit of 11 man. I think they thought it would boost their numbers a little more, but I think they're so close to Cary, and I think Cary's a really good school as well, from what I hear, and I think they're priced about the same. So even though it's 8-man versus 11, those kids are still, a lot of those athletes have still chosen to go over there. And I mean, their quarterback he's special. If he wanted to play at the next level, I think he could somewhere. And I'm not saying like Division I, Power 5 or anything like that, but I mean, playing at the next level is playing at the next level. I mean, I definitely think he could play somewhere. And he's fast, he's physical. They're tough. They like to spread you out and sling that thing. And I saw them at the Jamboree, man. They came in there in girdles and shorts and ran it down our throats. And I was like, who are these guys? Like, I thought you were going to spread it. And I was like, what is going on here?
I remember Parrott. They
there's
had a couple good guys roll through around that time. When I
was
playing.
They still got some. They're going to keep that fresh one roll. They're always going to have a couple coming through. And all those schools are, we compete against all those schools now. They're all 3A. We're still a 2A. So we're technically, competing up against them. So their numbers they've got almost 100 kids more in high school than we do. So I think it's really cool that we compete the way we do. It's been as fortunate as we've had to have the athletes come through that we have.
Yeah, they were always our biggest rivals outside of Faith, of course.
Absolutely. And it's still that way.
I think that McLaughlin kid that graduated the same year I did, I think didn't he go play baseball at BYU or something?
He did. He's still there actually because he went on his mission or whatever it's called, and then came back. So actually, I want to say I heard he was starting last year, which is pretty good. I'd like to check in on him. I forgot. He was a stud.
Dude, I realized real quick. He knocked me out.
That kid was good, man. That's right. I forgot.
I saw this tall kid coming at me on a kickoff, and I'm going to block this tall kid. He just kept getting bigger. And next thing I know, I'm getting up off the ground. My dad's like,
he stays like, yep, I think I'm done today.
I miss it.
Right. I'll say when I didn't play in football in high school, and then starting to coach it. I was talking to another coach recently he's a Hall of Famer in North Carolina as a public school high school coach. And I was talking with him and I was like, is it true that I heard you started off as a baseball guy? He was like, I did, man. I said, you just weren't going to tell me, coach? He said, I knew you'd find out. I said, it's just something about those Friday nights. And he said, man, I fell in love with it. I said, dude, I felt that way very it's still my limited knowledge has put me to where I like where I'm at. But it's hard to match that energy and the atmosphere of a Friday night. You can't. And even as a coach, it still gives me those chills and my hair stands up. It's just hard to hard to beat that.
Are y'all getting a lot of people coming to your games? Because I know around my last couple years, attendance was kind of starting to drop off.
And it really especially post COVID, it came and it grew tremendously. Last year we did, I think, some of the biggest crowds we've ever had, and this year has been pretty good. And you never know when your team has, you come off a state championship and you're 500, and so people are everybody wants to jump ship sometimes, and people forget we graduated 8 seniors that started, 7 started. It's you're like, oh yeah, and we had one that's playing at the next level and one that's going to play baseball at the next level. So I mean, phenomenal athletes that were hard to replace. And I think that what has been awesome to see is watch some super young guys step up and show that they're dudes and that they're here to make a name and that they belong, and they do. And I think once they got watching them come into themselves and be like, oh yeah, I do belong. And hey man, you're here for a reason. We believe in you. And seeing it kind of just them believe, starting to feel that, oh, they do. Yeah, man, that's why you're here. We're telling you, and really just go play and kind of let free and play freely. That there's a difference in just playing football and freely playing, and it's completely different. So watching that kind of transpire over the years, especially from my viewpoint this year, kind of having to step back and, so I'm looking at things a lot differently too as just a coach. It's been pretty cool. It's been fun to see I hate our record doesn't justify a lot of the really good things I've seen, because it is hard, especially when you come off a state championship team. And I think it's tough when you have a new head coach that's never been a head coach at the varsity level. So I think that's something that's, from a program anywhere has been successful like we have, that kind of like, it scares a lot of people. From top to bottom, not in-house and out. Like everybody makes everybody's like, but you try to look at the culture you want to build. And I for me is kind of like, I've been there where I got hired as a young coach and never was I supposed to be the varsity coach when it happened. It was unexpected for everybody, the school, myself. So how being able to kind of, I got thrown to the fire myself, but for me, I kind of didn't mind it because I felt like I just jumped in too. It was just, but I was, I knew how things had operated from my coach, who was a Hall of Famer, and not saying that it was just that way or no way, but I felt like I had a good base for how I wanted to operate as far as scheduling practices and things like that. But I knew that I'd always, in the years being a coach, a JV coach, I knew there were some things that I wanted to do differently, how I approach certain situations. I felt like I wanted to be a coach that players could talk to, but also understand, when I'm getting on you and getting in you sometimes, and I do love you, right? Remember, we were I got your back too, but and that can be very tough. And it takes time to build the relationships and know that, it's one day that you felt like, God, coach all over me today, but we could go sit down after practice and laugh and carry on my bad, coach. I'm like, yeah, my bad, man. I got on you a little bit today, dude. But it takes time to build that. And you can't just do that always. There's, you learn it. I've had to learn as a coach where I responded to being embarrassed. And that was very old school, how I was, the kind of teams and programs I was raised in. And I was one of those ones oh, you called me out. I'm going to show you. I didn't like that. So I was like, all right, I'm going to show you. Because I didn't want to be embarrassed and called out like that. But I learned very quickly as a coach early on that there's kids that respond to that, and there's kids that completely shut down to that. And I've learned very quickly that 90% of the time, brothers are going to be completely different too. Oh, yeah. One's going to respond. One may respond to that. One's going to completely shut down. You're going, they're from the same house. They got but they're different. Everybody's different. So I learned that there's some kid that and I'm going to use one of my first second, Tyson Jones was a great example. We joke about it. I learned very quickly, if I embarrassed him or yelled at him across the field, he was done. I might as well take him out of the game. Whatever just went bad is going to get worse. And I learned that, he's one that I'll walk out the dugout and meet at the sideline and put my arm around you, and we might face the field. And it might not always be nice. It might not be, I love you, buddy. But it might, sometimes it's hey, we got to pick it up, but how you go about it. And, then I might but, I love you, pat him on the back and we keep going. But it's just learning how, I think that was a big part of coaching for me, was learning how to interact and handle how people respond, and being open enough to be hey, everybody is different. This is how I do things. And that's cool. But, you're going to only be able to reach those kids in my mind, where I feel you've got to be able to work to a place where you can reach multiple different styles of kids. If you want to be successful and you want people to be excited about joining your program. That was one thing when I got there. I felt like the teams were kind of small. Kids were afraid to play that didn't play competitively on the weekends or in travel ball. And I didn't like that. I didn't want that. I wanted guys that, that maybe you took a couple of years off, but to know that hey, it is a good program. It's going to be ran, we have expectations, but we don't want you to be intimidated because you're not very good right now. We're going to you come out here, you're going to get better. We're going to help you get better. I promise you, so and we're here for that. And we don't mind it. We don't care if you can't catch when you get there. It's fine. And we'll teach you. If you're going to stick it out and you're going to work through the hard stuff with us, I was then, we're there for you. And I think that's helped build our program where last year we had almost 30 kids, 35 kids between JV and varsity. The most we've ever had. I thought it was an incredible thing. I'm sitting there going, what am I going to do? But it was a good problem to have. It was, I mean, probably when you were there, we probably, 11, 12? We had small teams.
Dude, I know. It was like you had like 3 guys on the bench, maybe.
Right, and that's it, right, maybe. And, and that's where, like, this year, I was printing a lineup card because I couldn't write it. Got tired of writing all of the guys that were, and like but it was so awesome. Like, and I loved every second. And I was like, there's life in the dugout and there's different things like, and I'm going to use Isaac Calhoun as my example. Like, came on as a sophomore or junior to play baseball. And hadn't played since Little League. And it's a tough sport to pick up. Oh, yeah. And I mean, but put in work and did a great job. But he knew, like, sometimes, like, his role was, like, he was always fired up and, like, had this little thing he did in the dugout. And, like, you look back and, like, you're going, man, y'all were so loose and you're having so much fun. Like, that's why we had the success we did. Like, y'all enjoy being around each other. Like, even, like, days where, like, conditioning is tough or practice is tough or is boring, it's, like, you're able to, like, find that joy in being with your buddies and, like, and, like, there's something you do to help this team succeed. And without you, it doesn't go. Like, and I thought that was neat. Like, I felt like he was always being newer to the program too. Like, if I was cracking down, like, I felt like I was being the bad guy that day. He was always there to brighten the mood, like make a comment, like, to get us all laughing. Even like, like, you need that guy, you need that guy on the team. Like, because we're all competitive and we all want to do well. And, like, so we have our times. So, like, it was even good for me as a coach to be like, you're right, let's go. Like, all right, that's over. Like, we're good. Let's go. Like, let's shake that. So, like, that's helped me. But, I mean, I think for me, like, those kids wanting to come be a part of the team and the program and, like, what we built over the years has been one of the most enjoyable parts, too. And, like, seeing kids not be afraid to come fail. We all know how hard it is going to be and how much you're going to fail. And so if you step out there, you're going to fail a whole lot, way more than you ever succeed out there.
Exactly.
So, like, just not being afraid of that.
It's the one sport where you're guaranteed.
You bat 300, you're going to be all conference. You're going to be all state. Like, hey, man, like in the MLB, you're going to be an all-star. It's like arguably a Hall of Famer. If you bat 300 in your career, you're going to be a Hall of Famer. So, like, it's not that easy. So, I mean, that's what I'd love to see. Even, like Marty, a guy who's playing college football, picked up baseball the last 2 years and worked hard enough to break the starting lineup in a playoff game. Things like that. Like, as a hitter, like, found his way. Like, I turned around, I made jokes early in the year. I said, every time I look, I said, Marty's the only one hitting on the tee. He'd come out there and, we started BP and he started hitting. I was like, he's getting better. And then we get the live arms and all of a sudden he about takes the pitcher's head off and almost hit a bomb in one of our live air squads. And I'm like, oh, you're for real this year. He said, I told you, Coach, I'm going to get in the lineup this year. I said, I hear you, man. Like, I love it. And by the end of the season, man, daggone, he was right. He's DHing, and I thought that would play some outfield. I was like, man, but little things like that, like, build that team culture. And, if he didn't feel welcome to, like, come join, like, he helped as a leader, just as a person, as a human. It was for football. So him, just that natural leadership, joining the team and having guys like that around that push others to work harder, I think is awesome. And that's what really helps build that culture and the success.
Yeah, you got thrown to the fire almost immediately because you came in about the same time I did, and I think it was maybe 1 or 2 years. Yep,
1 year and thrown to varsity, which I had been coaching Legion ball through when I got hurt in college. So I'd had some experience with high school kids, but not on that scale. And then so 1 year as a JV under, the Hall of Famer. And I was like, all right, I'm a couple years of this. That was the whole plan, like, he's going to groom me for a couple years to, like, help show me, blah, blah, blah. And then he's going to retire. And all of a sudden, next thing I know is he's going back to the public school in 1 year. And I'm sitting there, like, having options of, like, do I go with him or do I stay here? And all kinds of, and it's fresh out of college and a new job. And that was kind of a crazy experience, like, just like, what do I do? Do I follow the guy that helped me get here? Or, like, and it was, and like, part of that was, what if I never got another head coaching opportunity? So, like, I felt, like I had to at least try, I was like, even if I go down and burn and, and we never win a game, I got to try, like, I felt like I was like, ultimately this is the goal one day. So I'd rather, if I'm going to fail, like, let's learn, and then whatever happens, happens, and then let's go figure out how to get better and get back to where we want to be.
What made you stay? Is it just that opportunity that just...
Honestly, like, a big part of it was the opportunity and talking to the administrative staff and actually making me feel like as such a new young coach that they believed in me and that, you know, that they thought it was the right decision to give me this opportunity, like understanding and knowing full well that we could fail and fall flat on our face and that was okay. Like, you know, there was, you know, they understood there was going to be growing pains and things like that. And I think that made me so comfortable in knowing that, like, all right, like, you know, they're going to allow me to learn and, like, know I care about the guys and that we're going to work hard and we're going to figure it out. And I think that was probably the biggest thing that made me stay, because where I was going to go potentially you know, was thinking, I knew coming from there prior and playing there that their dynamics were different. It was the same administration, some of it. And I knew from the past that I didn't think that's really how I wanted to operate and how I would excel right away, at least not in that position. And I knew that I felt like I had more support and things like that at Rocky Mountain Academy. So I stayed at RMA and was like, we'll see what happens. Here I am 10 years later. Which is hard to believe. Like that's what this year they're like, all right, your 10th year, Cameron ran. I said, how many? I've been here how many years? It's like, are you sure?
Would you change anything?
They're like, yeah, you graduated from Campbell in 2014. I was like, dang, I did. And started teaching that fall.
Just immediately.
Immediately, straight to the fire.
Would you change anything about what you did?
Man, you know, when I originally started coaching, I thought like I'd want to go to the collegiate level, and that was a big goal. And I think through, like, you know, coaching some travel ball, doing some other things, doing some collegiate summer league stuff, that like high school is where I like, is my fit. It's like I enjoy the kids, the age, the fact that they're still, the majority are still willing and wanting to learn the game. And and I noticed more the college, you got a lot more of, this is what I do. And like, you know, like I love the game and enjoy it so much. Like I want to be around a group and a bunch of kids that, you know, are like sponges and want to learn and want to get after it. And, you know, you deal with less egos, and now with NIL and all that kind of stuff, now I could only imagine. But I just felt like, you know, originally my goal, I'm gonna go coach college and this and that. And now it's like, I felt like I found my home in the high school staff or baseball area. And, you know, down the road, maybe I would consider like a recruiting position somewhere or an assistant collegiate position maybe, but I don't see myself ever really wanting to do it as a head coach. It's just a lot, man. And then it also, you know, at the end of the day, like, yeah, it's a job as a coach to win at the high school level, but, you know, if we have a bad year and say we go 3-15 this year, I don't think they'll fire me just because we sucked. It had to be, you know, other reasons. Now, if I do that for 3 or 4 years, yeah, maybe they would. Or 2 years, who knows?
Well,
but you know, at the collegiate level,
I think you're pretty safe for a little.
I'm hoping, like, but you never know. But like, you know, at the collegiate level, you get paid to win. Mm-hmm. So like, it's a business. It's very much it's very cutthroat. You know, through my friends that have been through the minor leagues and drafted through players, I've sat in with guys at the coaching. I sat in actually and talked with a guy with the Washington Nationals organization. He was a coach, and we were actually talking about my buddy who was a player for the Nationals at that time. But just like, what was crazy to hear this coach talk about was a year and a half prior, he was a player. You know, and he was a player in the Nationals organization and just couldn't quite get over that hump. And, you know, when they were going to cut him, they offered him a position coaching. And he was like, man, I never thought about it. He said, now I'm here coaching, you know, low A and working my way up. I was like, man, that's how cool is that? Like, kind of, you never know. They kind of just, he was like, I'd never planned on coaching at all. And he said, but now I was like, you know, this is what I like to do. I said, well, you know, you like to interact with the adults and things like that. Whereas I feel like at that level, it's even more challenging to teach a pro how to hit, you know. And I think obviously your background matters and to an extent, you know, but I think at that level, if you don't have the playing background, it's hard to get those guys to buy in. which I do think that helps as a high school coaches, knowing that you played at the next level,
Exactly.
that
Like,
you have experience there. That they think you automatically know more, and that's not always the case. But I think you've been exposed to a lot of different things, like different styles of kids and athletes. Like I was saying earlier with my team, like my coach was very old school, and it was my way or the highway. And I went to, and kids just quit. If they were really good, they could be really good players. And I had some really friends that were really good baseball players that just gave up the game. And I always, as a coach, I was like, I don't want to run those guys away because, one of my best friends, younger ones, was like, man, he needed baseball. Like it kept him out of trouble. So like, I was like, if I'm a coach one day, I want to find ways to, they're going to be knuckleheads, and I know there's going to be days where I might want to kill them, but like they need this just as much as we need them, kind of thing. Like,
well, at the high school level, you're not even really just building just a baseball player. You're building them as a person too.
100%. That's like I think that's what I really enjoy too, is helping instill like the discipline that's going to be necessary, and like making sure you take care of your responsibilities and what they are, and having responsibilities that you need to be taking care of. I think in today's time, things have gotten crazy, and it's very easy for people to do little things for you, just like, oh, I'm just being nice, and and like you're helping, but sometimes you're not helping. Like I think one thing I love as a baseball coach is creating adversity, because I know what it did for me and it's done for me. And you're throughout your entire life, you're going to face it in many different ways. So being able to, I think, we create those environments in a controlled environment, really, or create those situations in controlled environments in practice. So where you learn that it's okay to fail, and like, you're not afraid to fail. And it's like, man, like, we know you're going to fail. It's okay. Like, I feel like I've seen, as things have changed too, is kids aren't allowed to fail, or they feel like they can't fail, their disappointment and things like that, and they've never been allowed to fail. So they have this impression in their brain that, oh, if I fail, then like I'm just done for. And I'm like, no, man, like that's what builds you. It makes you strong. That's how you learn to work through things. And I was like, you need that in life. I was like, because there's gonna be there's gonna be tribulations down the road. There's gonna be hard times. Like your boss is gonna yell at you one day. Like there's gonna be, you're gonna fall short somewhere. That's life. So you've got to be able to learn how to take that in, understand where you've got to grow and be better, and be willing to do that. And I feel like that's a big part of high school athletics. To me, it's huge.
You've been amazing. Such a big help. Like, this is like 25% grade for my project, for my whole class.
Yeah. Dang, I'm telling you, I remember like I had one like that, and it was a huge part.
Like I've been dreading this. Like it's not due technically for like another month, but I need to go ahead and get on.
I want to be done with it. I did, because that's what I ended up doing it with. Like my buddies at Carolina. So 3 guys I went to high school with played baseball at Carolina. So I was supposed to interview the 3 of them, and then Mike Fox at the time, and got it approved through them, which I was like, oh my God, I get to interview Mike Fox, and ended up interviewing Scott Forbes. So it got ran down, but or delegated. But what's crazy is I had the chance to talk to the assistant coach at that time, who was Scott Forbes, who is now the head coach. But I got to also hear him say how he was different from Coach Fox, where I think Coach Forbes and I are very similar in our ways, where yes, there's certain things like this is how it should be done, but I feel like as far as you want to wear blue cleats, you want to wear white cleats, do you, baby. If that makes you feel good, that's going to make you feel like you play good, hey, go ahead. Where the Mike Foxes and some of the other coaches were more like, no, we're all doing it. And like, some that's a discipline thing, and I get it. But I think, I've learned too is letting kids express themselves in some way and fashion absolutely helps them play better. Releases tension and relaxes people. I think so. That's one thing I always, as a coach too, I was like, that's not something I'm going to harp on as being like, that doesn't bother me. If that makes you feel good, you like your arm sleeve, baby, you like all your gear, hey, I'm good.
You're wearing the same jersey.
Right. Is that, as long as we got the same jersey on, we're good.
I really appreciate it. We've even ran a little long. I was worried about getting time.
I know. No, that's what. I
I'm sorry
understand.
it
That's
took
I'm
so
always
much
like,
of your time. I needed 45
oh no,
minutes.
you're
And it
fine,
was
man.
like, gosh, 45 minutes? I don't know how to begin
I know.
there.
That's why I was like, that's a long interview.
It is.
I think, man, the way you were saying, being able to do it like a conversation made it even easier. I think that's. Oh, my dog's going nuts.
Put it in there to like you can keep it casual. It doesn't have to be like a whole thing.
It does,
so.
like it helps like flow and be able to talk about all the different things. You don't feel so
Exactly. Oh man, I'm gonna end the recording.